Madam President.
Senator from Texas.
Madam President, I rise today to speak about a grave matter and a clear violation of religious freedom, human dignity, and the rule of law. In China, Christians are fighting daily for their religious freedom against the Chinese Communist Party. And on October 10th, 2025, the Chinese Communist Party launched the largest coordinated nationwide crackdown in more than 4 decades against a Christian urban house church in China. In that sweep, 23 pastors and church members of the Zion Church, one of China's largest underground congregations, were arrested and wrongfully detained, including Pastor Ezra Jin. Pastor Jin and the members of the Zion Church were not engaged in violence. They were worshiping. They were serving God. And for that action, they are being treated as enemies of the communist state. Last week, I introduced a bipartisan, bicameral resolution to condemn the abduction of Pastor Jin and the Zion Church leaders and to demand their immediate release. This resolution is designed to pressure Chinese leadership to release the congregation members and to let them practice their Christian faith freely. It sends a message that faith is not a crime, and a government that fears its citizens' faith is nothing more than an oppressive tyranny. Pastor Jin's daughter and her husband, Bill, a native Houstonian, wrote about the CCP's persecution in the Washington Post this past week. In their column, they made a piercing observation, and I want to share it here in full. Quote, "There are few more obvious ways to showcase the bankruptcy of an ideology and the vitality of the Christian faith than by forcing peaceful believers to suffer for the sake of their convictions." This is a profound truth. China, like other communist regimes before it, utterly despises the fact that there is and always has been a higher authority than the state itself. In its effort to bring every aspect of society under brutal government control, the CCP uses state power to drive fear into the hearts of its citizens. History has shown these tactics will fail, and the persecuted church will only grow stronger. The Apostle Paul reminds us that God gave us not a spirit of fear, but of power and of love. I know that that same spirit, one of power and of love, is what the church in China is fighting with. I urge my colleagues to join me in passing this resolution unanimously, to show our support for Pastor Jin, his family, and his fellow believers, and to show the world that the United States stands on the side of freedom, on the side of faith, and we stand with the persecuted Christians in China. Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that the Foreign Relations Committee be discharged from further consideration and the Senate now proceed to S-Res 463.
The clerk will report.
Senate Resolution 463 expressing condemnation of the Chinese Communist Party's persecution of religious minority groups and so forth.
Without objection, the committee is. The Senate will proceed to the measure.
I ask unanimous consent that Cruz substitute amendment to the resolution be considered and agreed to.
Without objection.
I know of no further debate on the resolution as amended.
If there's no further debate, the question is on the resolution as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The resolution as amended is adopted.
Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that the Cruz substitute amendment to the preamble be agreed to, the preamble as amended be agreed to, and that the motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Without objection.
Madam President.
Senator from Texas.
Madam President, I rise today to honor a very special group of Americans, the soldiers, the sailors, the Marines, and the airmen who have fought bravely for this nation, but who have received the very highest distinction that any member of the armed forces can earn, the Medal of Honor. Since 1863, presidents of the United States have awarded the Medal of Honor to more than 3,500 of the bravest men and women ever to wear the uniform of this nation. Each one has demonstrated valor, gallantry, and heroism above and beyond the call of duty, with acts so selfless, so extraordinary, that they stand as beacons of courage for future generations. In 1916, Congress passed Public Law 6556, establishing the Army and Navy Medal of Honor roll and entitling each Medal of Honor recipient to a modest special pension of $10 per month for life. Over time, that monthly amount has gradually increased from $10 to $100 to what stands today at approximately $1,400 per month. But Madam President, let's pause and think about that. $1,400 a month for those who risked everything, their safety, their future, their very lives for freedom, for the opportunity for all of us to be here today. Today, there are 61 living Medal of Honor recipients. 61 men who faced unthinkable odds, who put their country before themselves so that the rest of us could live in peace. We cannot truly ever repay them. There is no sum, there is no medal, there are no words that can measure up to their sacrifice. But there are ways that we can continue to honor them by ensuring that they are cared for, respected, and supported. Madam President, in January of this year, I introduced the Medals Act, my legislation to raise the monthly pension for Medal of Honor recipients. This legislation is a way for this nation to say, we see you, we remember you, and we will not forget what you have done. Many of these heroes spend their time traveling the country, speaking to school children, visiting military hospitals, and strengthening the very fabric of America. This monetary increase will allow them to continue those efforts and to reach more communities, mentor more veterans, and remind all of us about the cost of freedom. And I'd like to take a moment to recognize 9 Medal of Honor recipients who currently live in the Lone Star State. We honor them and we cherish them. I would also like to recognize the 139 Medal of Honor recipients who were either born in, entered the service from, or died in Texas. These are America's heroes, and they are heroes for the great state of Texas. Now, I'd like to take a moment to recognize the Medal of Honor recipients with us here in the gallery. Lieutenant Colonel William Swenson and Colonel Paris Davis. In just a moment, I will propound a unanimous consent request to take up and pass H.R. 695, the House-passed version of the Medal Act that passed the House 424-0. I urge my colleagues to join me as our companions in the House have already done in supporting this measure, in passing it into law, in sending it directly to the President's desk to be signed into law, and showing that when it comes to honoring our nation's very greatest heroes, we are united and we speak with one voice. Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on Veterans Affairs be discharged from further consideration of H.R. 695 and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration.
The clerk will report.
H.R. 695, an act to amend Title 38 United States Code and so forth.
Without objection, the committee is discharged. The Senate will now proceed to the measure.
Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam President, and I yield the floor.